produced by Netflix? Because it always says produced by Netflix, but I don't know if it's actually like it's streaming on Netflix, right? Yeah, okay. Distributed by Netflix is what Wikipedia says. So yeah, there's a lot of different because you're like, there's no way this was aired on television. Unless Korea has an HBO that like we're not aware of.
They probably do.
Yeah, but like
But
you mentioned that like
it's not a typical Korean.
yeah,
drama.
you mentioned that like Korean dramas don't like get this graphic.
Yeah, and I'm a huge Korea boo.
Yeah. So
Or sexual. Like
Yeah.
the closest men and women get is like holding hands. They
Yeah.
don't even kiss.
So let's go down the list of like our main cast. And we'll start with the main character. Sorry if I butchered these names. Seong Gi-hoon, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and he is participant number 456.
The
in
last
the show.
number.
The last number, and pretty much to describe him is that he is a loser. He is.
Yeah.
He is a complete loser. He is a dad who is divorced. He like doesn't see his kid very often. You see him like he just mooches off of his mom.
Yeah, and
You see
she's
him-
pretty old too.
Yeah, she's really old too, and she like works really hard to like try to support him, But he just kind of goes and like steals her debit card and
Yeah.
withdraws a bunch of money and like bets it on horse races.
Yeah.
That's the first episode, and like it's a strong start.
Yeah. I mean, you get to be pretty sympathetic to him though, because
Yeah,
he's not an evil jerk. He's just like,
he's just a loser.
yeah,
He's just kind of sad and pathetic,
yeah.
right? And I think that's actually important for these sorts of shows, right? Like
Oh,
for
okay.
this sort of like genre of show, you want someone who like you need someone who's like a surrogate for the audience who's like witnessing these things. He's kind of like sharp, but he is not smart. Like he's sharp, not smart.
Sharp, not smart. I'm not
Yeah,
sure what that
like
means.
he's more streetwise. He's probably
Oh.
like more streetwise than he is actually intelligent, right?
Oh,
Or
okay.
like maybe like perceptive. He's like perceptive of things rather than like he's not really able to think his way through, but he notices things and then like that's how he like makes his way through things, right? And yeah, because there's definitely like certain games like he's the only one who like noticed like in like they had the sugar cone game where they have like this block of like sugar and you're supposed to make carve a shape out of it.
Yeah.
And he chose the most difficult shape.
Yeah,
Right?
he was tricked into it.
Yeah,
but
he was tricked into it, but like he was kind of like,
Yeah.
but like he noticed that like, oh, this is thinner on one side, and like I can dissolve it from the other side by licking the back.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and like others also copy him. There
Yeah.
are moments where like there's comedic relief, and that was one of them.
Yeah, and that's important for like a show like that. You need moments of levity.
Yeah, because it's really bloody.
Yeah, or like graphic, bleak as well. You know,
Yeah.
you get to kind of rooting for him because he's also he's a good guy at heart, right? He's I think a good way to describe him was like he is a good guy who's made mistakes, right? Like he's very empathetic towards other characters,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
he's like, oh, like here's an old man, let's help him out because like
Yeah.
he's an old man,
Yeah.
and he and a bit of him is kind of like a sucker too, like like people take advantage of his like kindness as well.
Yeah. I mean, like he knows that he's going to be betrayed.
Yeah.
Like he can see it. He's just not proactive in like preventing it.
Yeah.
Or like that's the thing that like his semi best friend. He's not his best friend. He's like his childhood, like
childhood
whatever.
friend,
He
childhood
grew up
friend.
with him,
Yeah.
and he like admires him because he went to a business school.
Yeah. We are talking about the character Sungwoo, Cho Sungwoo.
Okay.
He is participant number 218, and he's kind of like the opposite of our main character. He's smart, right? He's smart, and every time you look at him, he always has like an expression of like the gears turn. You know, like he's always trying to think of like the plan, right? And he like saves them all. And there's times where you're like, oh, like he is like kind of sympathetic, right? But there's also the moments of him like this guy's like a scumbag, right?
Yeah.
Because you've seen there are moments where you're like, oh, like he seems kind of nice. He's like you know, he's the opposite where he's nice looking on the outside, but then inside he's kind of a dickbag.
Yeah, he's cold.
He's cold and heartless.
Yeah. He's
like,
the typical like Wall Street bro.
I think the first thing, because I don't really like him like first introduction really. Or like maybe like not first introduction, but like you know when we got to know him more, because like you remember when main character and him were talking, is like, well, if you're in so much debt, why don't you declare bankruptcy? And he's like, I can't. I put my mom's shop and home as collateral. It's like, what the hell, man? Yo, what the hell?
Yeah.
And she doesn't know, and like 100%, mom doesn't know about it.
Yeah, she thinks he's in the U.S.
Yeah, like he's lied to his mom about like you know where he is, and probably lied to his mom about like having her property as collateral, you know, and that kind of like even hints towards his behavior in the future too. How he's like he's willing to like kind of like take people and like use them as like stepping stones.
Yeah.
Right. Because we have a Pakistani character named Ali Abdul. Ali Abdul is strong. He like fulfills strong foreigner role in like you know these sorts of stories. You know.
Yeah.
Like whenever you have like you know a storyline like that, they usually grab like a foreigner to like play as like the big muscle group.
Okay.
Maybe not as smart and maybe like you know
just like.
And he actually serves a good like purpose in being like, I have no idea what these games are. Which at least for the foreign audience, like a lot of us like we're like, what are these games? You know, like I feel like
I mean some of them are like what is it, the
red light green light.
That's every culture has that.
Yeah, but I don't think every culture has like a honeycomb carving like sort of thing, right? No. Or like there's red light green light, there's like there's like a bunch of like other games as well, like a couple other games, and he was like completely like he's like, I don't know what I'm doing. But like Sungwoo kind of like he's like, oh hey, you're strong, I'm smart, let's like we'll work together. And then there's a game where they have to like take more like you know pretty much they tell you to partner up. And so people partner up with people who they trust or are really close with. And they say, you have to take the marbles from your partner, and whoever has 0 marbles dies.
Yeah. And so in the beginning, no one knew that when it said you will be eliminated, they thought you just like exit the game. Yeah. But you just get killed.
Yeah, like they signed a contract in the beginning of the game saying that, oh, hey, like if you're eliminated, you know, they use the word eliminated, right?
Yeah.
And if you read that initially, you're most likely going to think, oh, that means like I'll be eliminated, but I can just go home afterwards.
Yeah.
Right?
That's the importance of asking clarifying questions.
Yeah, like, hey,
what does that mean?
What does eliminated mean?
Yeah, what are these words? Because like you also learn one of the like the more significant lessons I got from this is like the importance of contractual agreements and understanding what the words mean. Yeah. Because it's kind of like you're signing your life away. Whenever you're like signing any document, right? When you're entering a contract, you are basically like doing the same thing. Okay. And also another general idea I got from this is that life is a game,
Mm-hmm.
and even if you're not like met with like, you know, drastic like, oh, if you lose this like game of marbles you get killed.
Yeah.
It's more like, you know, you might not get the job that will like save your family from destitution and stuff like that, because that can happen.
Yeah. Let's see. But in this, let's see. There's also, let's see. But yeah, like Ali gets it rough. I saw it coming a mile away too. Like Song-woo is like, hey, let's work together. Like he's like kind of buttering him up too. You know, he's like helping him out, right? He gives Ali the bus fare money, you know, like the bus fare money, and like pays for his like ramen, like when they when everyone like drops out. And it's really funny because you're like, everyone drops out and they all are like, yo, our lives suck.
Our life outside of this game is worse than this game.
Yeah.
So that's why a lot of them
and
chose
like,
to come back.
Yeah, and then because the thing is that the game at least has like that one spark of hope, right? That one glimmer of hope that they can see, which is like the money. While like in their actual life, like, you know, on the out, you know, in the world, they don't have that hope. So it's like, well, we might as well risk it all. You know?
Yeah.
And that's the thing too, like here's the thing too, is like the organization targets those sorts of people who are that desperate, you know.
Yeah.
So it's
and
very
like the way they do it is through like this
they have
game.
like organization. They have like this.
No, like the slapping.
Yeah. They have like someone scouted out like with like he plays like, hey, you play this like it's like a Korean like traditional game where they slap a piece of paper with another piece of paper. If you're able to flip it, you win. And so he's playing that game, and like if he wins, he gets to slap you. But if you win, you get like 100,000 won, which I don't know how much that translates to.
It's $100.
$100? Okay.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, people like just keep on doing it and just get slapped a whole bunch.
Yeah.
And then you see like this video where like they're like, how do you know everything about us? And they just show the videos of them getting their faces slapped in.
Yeah.
Every one of them.
And the organization knows how much debt they have, and you find out how they know how much debt they have is because the top guy is a loan shark.
Yeah, he's like the one who runs all these loan organizations and stuff like that.
Yeah, and he's uber rich.
Yeah, so he knows like who is in super desperate need of money.
Yeah. And then at the very end, the numbers, you know, start to make sense because the old guy.
Well, let's get into that a little bit later. Let's get that to later. No.
So, I think Squid Game, for those of you who have watched Hunger Games and Parasite, it's kind of like a marriage between those. It's a meld between those.
Yeah.
So near the beginning of the show, there's 3 things that people sign.
Yeah.
Like there's no quitting. There's something about consensus. So like if
everyone
the majority
wants to quit. Yeah, if the majority wants to quit, then like everyone quits, but no one gets any money. And they even mentioned that like if you die in the game, you get alimony, like, you know, like there's alimony. The family gets money, right?
Yeah.
So there's that aspect as well, you know, there's that aspect as well. So some people would be like, well, I'll go even if I die, like, you know, my family like gets something out of it.
And there's I like how there's like all sorts of ages and genders.
Yeah.
And even like diversity as far as like ethnicity as well.
Yeah. And then there's pretty like interesting things. You see like different backstories too. Let's go into one of the other characters who I thought was like really interesting, and that is, let's see, what was her name? Let's see, Han Minyo. She's the one with like she's like the one, she's the woman with like the longer like wavier hair.
Oh.
The one that she's like a con artist, right? And you don't actually find out what her backstory is. in the beginning of the game, in the beginning of like the show, she's like, "Oh, I'm a mother. I just like gave birth. I haven't even named my kid yet, right?" But then like you see her later on, it's like, "Yo, that was probably a lie." And her whole thing is like she's trying to like manipulate people to like her detriment too, because like everyone like partway through, like everyone knows that she's like super hardcore manipulative. No one wants to team up with her, right?
Yeah.
Because they know that, like, oh yeah, you're just gonna try to trick us, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, like, she has, like, beef with like, the mafia dude, like, kind of like the mafia-looking dude, right? Where they have, like, Doksu, who's, like, a gangster, and he has, like, a massive, like, huge debt. And he is the bad guy for most of the show. He's like, yeah, I mean, well, he's dead. He died. He's doesn't appear at the very end. He's dead. So that's why I say most of the show, because it's more Sang-woo who's the last villain.
Yeah. No, but like when.
His entire life, his entire existence, yes, he's the bad guy. But of the show, he's not the villain of the show, though. He is an antagonist, but he's not the antagonist.
Okay.
He goes and he uses like his strength to intimidate people to follow him, right? And that even leads to people being like, because he pairs up with that one game where you pair up with whoever's closest with you, and that guy isn't like wants him dead. He's like, oh, I'm so happy I get to kill you or something like that, you know. And it kind of like, so he has like him and the con artist woman, they like team up together, but then he like betrays her.
Yeah.
And then like I felt like both their deaths was like very well it was satisfying. It's like they both got their just desserts. You know?
Yeah.
Because they're both kind of like dirtbags. You know?
They were a match for each other.
They were perfect for each other. And let's see. Then there is another character. There is. Let's see. What was it? Oh, there's the police officer character. Junho, Hwang Junho. And he was a good like character. Like I don't think I was ever really like into like his motivations or anything, but I really enjoyed his POVs because without him we wouldn't see like the organization. We wouldn't see like what's like, because he like pretty much he finds out that these games are happening, and he is trying to find what happened to his brother who went to this game in the past of like this like death game, right? And he goes to investigate the island and is like trying to investigate everything. He disguises himself as one of like the guards, right? As one of the henchmen. And the henchmen are like really cool looking in my opinion. I really like the look of the henchmen.
Oh.
Like it's just like hoodie and like mask.
Yeah.
It's a nice aesthetic.
Red, and black.
Yeah, and then they all have like a basic shape on their masks. Like circles are like the grunts. Then you go triangle, and then you go squares. And it's really interesting, kind of seeing because I've read like a story called Kaiji, and there's another one called Liar Game that I've read, where it's both kind of like similar, where like they make people play these games for like money, and there's always people behind this like doing things like, oh, like they have to prep the stuff, they have to prep the games, they have to clean up the bodies, they have to do they have to do stuff, right? And and you don't really get to see them very much, right? You don't get to see like what they actually do, and so it's cool seeing like the background. You see like the group of like henchmen trying to do like an organ harvesting side hustle, right? where they're trying to like do things in like behind the back of their organization, which was like a cool like which was a cool like thing to see in like this sort of show.
I mean, there were trackers on the oxygen tanks.
Yeah.
Which...
But like someone has to remember they had someone who was on the cameras, security cameras and stuff for them too, like managing like the monitoring, and they would like change the cameras so that they didn't see it. And probably had a thing to like hide the trackers as well.
No, what I was saying was when the policeman, like when he escaped through the tunnels.
Yeah.
Like
they had trackers on the scuba gear. The scuba gear.
So like it was part of the organization.
Yeah. But like are you talking about the organ harvesting thing?
No, like they used it to harvest, but like the tanks were there.
Yeah, because they were part of the organization. They were part of the organization, and so they used like the organization stuff to do this organ harvesting thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They're like taking advantage. Like it's like, you know, like if you're going to work and you're like, hey, the work I have has like all this tech too. I might as well use it to like do my own thing, which is usually not allowed. You know, it's usually not allowed to use company property for non-company related things.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They were doing like their side hustle using company property, which is why they end up all getting like killed pretty much. They're like, you weren't supposed to be doing this.
Well, it's also because of like, you know, the guy with the black mask stressed how everyone is supposed to be equal.
Yeah.
There's no like hierarchies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the black mask guy was kind of interesting because we find out he was the police officer's brother, right? And that was a fun twist. Like I don't think I called it early on, but I think I just called it like right before it happened. It's like, oh, he's gonna be the brother.
Well, I think there was also another big hint.
Yeah, there was when he saw like the present, you know, like I think it was like the present inside the thing, because it matched the box that the brother had in that held the card. I think that's what he noted. Like he kind of.
Oh, that's when you found out, or like that was a hint.
I think that was a hint. I didn't catch it right away, but I think that was a hint. Because he saw a similar black box in He saw a similar black box in like the archive room, right? But there's also, and I think we'll get to like another character, which is the old man. I think his name was, let's see, Oh Il-nam. And like this is where this big spoiler comes in. He is the head honcho of this entire organization. He is like an elderly old man. He has a brain tumor. And he joins the game. He acts as a participant, and he is participant number 1, right? So it kind of reminds me of like Saw. Have you ever seen? I mean, I don't think you watched the movie Saw.
Saw, no.
It's like this really violent horror movie, like bloody thing, but it's like another psychological thing, right? Where like you have like he like Saw is like the serial killer. He imprisons 2 people, and they have to play a game that like tests their resolve to live. You know, and there's a part where like, you know, like the guys are trying to live, but like Saw was actually like in the room like with them the entire time. He just pretended to be a dead person, like a dead body in the background or something like that.
Oh, really?
And so it kind of reminded me of that, where like he's like, oh, he was playing with them the entire time. There was a time where because there was a weird part where I think both of us had noticed it, but we didn't think too much on it, where throughout the entire movie, every time someone got shot or killed by like the guards because they failed the game, they just got shot on camera. Like, you know, we see like their heads get popped, right? The old man in like one of the games where he's like, oh, he like teams up with the main character, and he's like, oh, I'll let you win, and I'll drop out, like I'll drop out. So it's like the scene of like, oh, the old man is sacrificing himself for the main character, right? And then the main character leaves, and they do this thing where they don't show the old man getting shot.
Yeah.
You know, and I thought that was really weird because I'm like, they don't do this in this show. They don't cut away. They don't normally cut away from the death in this show. But I didn't think too much about it. I was like, oh, maybe like, you know, he's an old man. Like the actor's an old man, so maybe they didn't want to like have him fall down on the ground or something like that.
Yeah.
Like that.
But like there were also other hints when you find out like at the last minute on the tug of war thing. Yeah. He knew how to win.
Yeah, he knew how to. Yeah, he was really good at the games.
Yeah.
Right.
And the whole like that part was kind of funny for me too. Like the way they were like leaning back.
You know, I was like, yeah, that's actually a strategy that like you see for like tug of war, like you know, like tug of war matches. Like there is strategy involved in like tug of war.
Yeah, and also, you also see like the more kind of sinister part of him.
Yeah.
During the marble game.
Yeah.
'Cause like he's like, you've been trying to, you know, like
you've been lying to me.
You've been lying to me this whole time.
Yeah.
You know, like when after the main character finds out he only has 19 marbles.
Yeah, he's trying to get him to like. He's like, man, you've been lying to me this entire time. Like this.
Yeah, you've been trying to trick me into giving you all my marbles.
Yeah. Like you've been taking advantage of the fact that I have dementia, you know. Like
yeah. Like the dementia was like a cover.
It's
like,
a cover.
He didn't actually have dementia, but like, you like you kind of like get a glimpse of like, oh, okay, this guy he doesn't actually have dementia.
This guy's sharper than you lets on, you know.
Yeah.
But then like here's the thing too is like, and like you saw like the main character break down, and it was a really good strong moment because it's like, oh yeah, the main character is a loser, right? The main character is a guy who's like he's begging, like
I mean, like he doesn't want to die.
Like he doesn't want to die, but yeah, exactly. But it's kind of like one of those things of like when you're in that situation, like how like you end up needing to do that, right? You do that sort of thing, right?
Yeah, it's like the whole movie is, or like the whole game, is filled with metaphors for different situations in life.
Yeah. Let's see.
But yeah, so the numbers. Can I talk about that now?
Okay. You can talk about the numbers.
So the old guy, you know, like he's number one.
Yeah, his number was number 1. He is the first contestant. He's the first contestant recruited for this game.
Yeah, and like their costumes that they wear, it's like a prison kind of.
Yeah, like their uniforms.
So, and then the poor guy, like the loser guy, he is 4, 5, 6.
Yeah.
So I think it's like supposed to represent the beginning and the end, or like the first and the last. And also at the last episode, when you find out it's the old guy who's like the ganbu, which means like childhood friend.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, he's uber. He said he's uber like rich, and the common thread between the uber rich and the really poor is that they're both like super
unable to enjoy life.
Yeah, because of, you know, the lack and the like abundance of money.
Yeah.
And so the reason why he you know, created the game is because he was bored.
Yeah, and he and his other rich friends were just super bored.
Yeah.
Right? And then so they made this game of like, you know, it's like, oh, let's dangle a carrot in front of like all these like poor individuals and like see like what happened, you know, like put them in this situation, you know?
Yeah. And the old guy actually has a tumor.
Yeah.
And I feel like he could have prevented his like death like that way.
Maybe. I think it's also just kind of like a show of like mortality, like death reaches everyone at some point, even if you have. I think that's like the idea,
Oh,
you know, like
okay.
even no matter how rich you are, you can't escape death.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's like treatments out there to like
Yeah, but he was old.
dissolve
He
the
was
tumor.
old. He was old too, right? And like, yeah, cancer is like no joke. Like there are treatments for cancer, but there's no permanent solution to cancer.
I wonder if the time where he peed his pants
Yeah,
and then
if
he
that
had
was-
like a really bad headache, if that was also his acting
Yeah.
or
I think that was probably actually real, you know.
yeah.
I think that was probably like real because like he is an old man who has cancer. He is an old man that has cancer.
Yeah.
But he was just kind of like he has like this kind of like gung ho feel like, oh yeah, like I'm about to die anyway, so might as well.
Yeah.
You know,
And like during the first game, he was like
having
laughing
fun, like
and
laughing, having fun.
just like
It's like, oh, this is fun, you know? And you kind of like, oh man, old guy, kind of like. I was messaging a friend too, like kind of giving like brief, like a sentence reaction after like a couple episodes, and I watched episode 6 and was like, yo, the old man, no, you know, and then like I got no like responses from my friend. And then I finished the show, and then it went from I finished Squid Game, yo, fuck the old man. I was like, yo, dang, the old man's super evil.
I didn't see him as an evil guy.
I think
I'm not
he's
sure
evil.
why.
I feel like he like you because you don't see him as evil for like most of the show, but like for me, it's just kind of like, yo, like like the idea that he did all of this because he was bored, in my opinion, is a rather evil thing to do. You know, no matter how bored you are, like you don't sacrifice like that many lives for the sake of your boredom.
He did say though that they did have a choice. They did have a choice. Like
Yeah.
they were kidnapped or whatever.
Yeah, but he gave the choice to people in like who are highly desperate. Like you could say that like yes, he did give them hope, but he also like was responsible for like all of their deaths.
yeah.
You know? Like if you have a drug dealer like give like you know like give drugs to someone and then like he'd be like, oh, like it was all on them, you know.
It is though, right?
No, I mean it's maybe there's a blame on both sides, but it's kind of like absolving yourself of all like guilt. You know, it's I think it's just like a way of like you know like it helps your moral conscience.
Yeah. I mean, because the way I was thinking about it is like, if you take the emotion out of it, because he is a loan shark, like, and they all did owe him money, and he knew they were not going to be able to pay him back like $6 million or
Yeah.
whatever they were in debt for, and you know, like all of them had this like habit of like continually taking out more money.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, that was his way of getting his money, you know, to kill them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, but still, like, does it justify him killing them, though?
It's capitalism, right?
Does that make capitalism right?
Well, it's not, but that is the system we all live in.
Yeah, but like, babe, I don't want you to be like bringing home dead bodies. Like,
Oh,
just
yeah.
say, like, it's
They
their fault. They
deserved
deserve it. I think I'll divorce you if you do that.
Yeah.
You'd be like, we're family, right? I was like, babe, that's like really fucked up. I'm gonna go to the cops, and then you'll kill me.
Yeah.
And then you kill me. All right, and then there was another girl. Let's see, her name was. Let's see. Why isn't she part of the main cast?
They didn't list her?
No, it's they have her in the support. I think they have her in the. Oh no, they're her. Kang Se-byuk. She is she's a character, and the character is from North Korea. She brought her brother here to South Korea, but she's trying to get money so she can bring her parents to South Korea as well. Her mom to South Korea. And she had brought money to like a person to bring her back, but essentially like they like ran off with the money.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's why she's like she needed the money. Like she's like I need the money, right? And she's kind of like a character that's like I don't trust anyone. She's like I'm a loner. You know, and she like sneaks in like a knife. Like she's really like sharp too, right? She's like another character that's like highly competent. She sneaks in a shiv in like in the thing, which like helps her out a lot. Like she uses that shiv to like great deal, right? She uses that as a screwdriver to get to the vents, and she finds out about the sugar. So like she finds that she like tells Sungwoo about the sugar, and he figures out it's a honeycomb, and he goes for the right thing, and she kind of just copies him, you know. She uses it to defend herself, and overall she's pretty sharp. But like she kind of softens up as the series goes on when she interacts with the main character, who's like a big softie, and she's like, "Oh, you're a softie. You're a good guy," you know. But she ends up dying in the end. You know, she ends up dying in the end.
Yeah.
Like, she gets wounded during one of the games, and then Sungwoo kind of just finishes her off when the opportunity arises.
Yeah.
And there was a part where she was like making friends with another like girl like her age, and man, that was like a great like show of like friendship, you know, that you're like, oh, these two are actually becoming friends, right?
Yeah.
And like, but then like they're in this case of like, no, they end up having to kill each other with like through the marble game.
Yeah. That was a tearjerker.
Yeah,
like,
and then the friend is like, you know, like, oh, we'll just play a game. Whoever throws it closest to the wall wins, right? And so like Sunbok, she throws it to the wall, and then the friend is like, just drops it. It's like, oh, sorry, my finger slipped. He's like, why are you doing this to me? It's like, because you have things to live for outside. I have nothing to live for.
Yeah. Plus, she told her, she is the one that, like, she was on her own, like the inmate, previous inmate. So she's I think the only one who was not in debt. But she basically didn't have any money because she just came out of prison. Yeah. And then the recruiter hands her a card.
Yeah, pretty much.
So it's kind of like, I don't know if, I guess she would have ended up being in debt anyways, right? Yeah. So, but at the same time, yeah, like they know how to recruit people who are desperate.
They know how to. They go for the vulnerable, you know. They go through like the vulnerable, and maybe all of them are like, you know, there's like plenty of people, and they all probably have like different stories, right? Some people are like, you know, they are losers, but some people are actually there to like maybe like, you know, like they're fat, like, you know, they're in a really desperate need to like support their family and stuff like that too, right? And yeah, like that's Squid Game. It's the number one show in US Netflix, which is great. You know, like, you know, it's cool seeing foreign stuff getting like number one in Netflix, right? Because I remember like days before, like, you know, like you'd show like a foreign film to a friend, and they'd be like, I can't read subtitles, you know, and yeah, like if you like. A lot of shows are being made from foreign countries, and having their voices dubbed over isn't exactly like the best, you know. You don't get to see like the original acting, right? I think there's like a lot of benefit from that.
Yeah. Reading comprehension.
Yeah, and then reading comprehension. Yeah, and if you can't read subtitles, there are resources online that can help you read faster.
Oh, to practice?
Yeah, speed reading stuff, you know. There's ways to, or like read more, you know. Read a book.
Yeah.
It helps you read faster if you just read a book.
That's true.
It's just like, and it's a because the brain is a muscle, you know. It is a muscle, and you do need to train. You know, you can just train it to like read faster. If you're not fast now, like it's like working out. You don't like start out like you don't start out bench pressing 200 pounds. You start bench pressing the bar, which is like 40 pounds or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was Squid Game. That was a fun movie. That was a fun show.
Yeah. Apparently Sam thought I would be squeamish.
You usually are.
But then he didn't like Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah, I don't like Handmaid's Tale. That's why I was like, no, you'll be fine with Squid Game. You've seen worse.
Yeah.
It's because like I think Handmaid's Tale actually is probably like the worst. I don't know. Like I haven't actually
you haven't actually like completely watched it.
Yeah. And like I can't really compare it with Game of Thrones either because I've only read Game of Thrones. Like I've only really read Game of Thrones. I haven't really watched that much of this show because I'm always like, I'll just read the book.
And I haven't watched Game of Thrones.
Yeah, but like I don't think Game of Thrones is any more or less squeamish than Handmaid's Tale. I think Handmaid's Tale is actually the thing that's like pushed the boundaries a bit.
Oh. And how?
I don't know. I've never watched it, but I know there's like a lot of like gratuitous sex and like bleak depictions of like culture. From what you've mentioned, I don't really want to watch it.
Oh, okay.
And watching the few episodes I have, I don't really want to watch it.
Yeah. The reason why it's not that I enjoy what happens in that. It's that it teaches you about patriarchy.
Yeah.
And the shadow matriarchy behind patriarchy.
Yeah. Here's the thing. When I watch a show, I don't go into a show wanting to learn anything.
Oh.
I don't usually like.
Oh, okay.
It's not what I watch shows for.
Okay.
Like I don't watch a show to like learn about a thing because I don't think exactly it's a place where you do learn a lesson because it's like it's kind of like a world you see like a writer's thing, like I think it's more or less like seeing like the world a writer makes, I feel like stories and stuff, they're more like it's more escapism. Like that's what I usually see like stories as. It's more of like an escapism, like like an escapism or like.
So you don't interpret shows?
No, I don't interpret shows.
Oh, okay. Yeah, see, that's the big difference between us then.
Yeah.
That's why there are shows that I watch, and I'm like, I can deal with the blood and gore.
Yeah,
and the darkness, if there's connections I can make with what they're trying to show or what I believe they're trying to show and real life.
Yeah.
Versus like there are some shows where it's just like there's no lesson except just like they just want to show blood and just action or whatever, and I'm like, oh, okay, no, I don't need to see this.
Yeah. Yeah. Though there were a couple shows where you just kind of read it as like gratuitous action, but there was stuff to interpret. There is stuff to interpret. You just never gave it a chance.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like sometimes you give it a chance, sometimes you don't.
Yeah. It depends on if I've heard stuff about it.
Yeah.
From people I admire.
Yeah.
If they've talked about it, then I'm like, oh, okay, let me give this a chance.
You always tell me about like you always watch stuff that clouds your judgment on movies and shows.
Oh,
you say that to me all the time.
But like, you actually like read the the synopsis of the show.
Yeah.
And it ruins things for me. Like the stuff that I hear from people that I admire is not like, what happens in it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, you can learn more about patriarchy.
Yeah, yeah.
And then it's my job to interpret it instead of like, oh, this is what happens in it.
Yeah.
You know?
Because, like, I don't know, like, who is, like, do you know the writers of, like, Handmaid's Tale and stuff like that?
Mm-hmm.
Is it all women?
It's a woman.
Okay, that's good. That's good. But yeah, like, I don't know, like, because in itself, it's like, in the end, all these things are just made to make money. You know, they're made to make money, right? I don't know. Was Handmaid's Tale a book?
Yeah.
Okay, that's
She
fine.
wrote a book and she also produced the show.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
And
Because a lot of
Mhm.
times, a lot of these like book adaptations are like quick cash grabs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it really depends on the book too. Like, we aren't gonna be able to interpret anything from Twilight, are we? Or like some or other shows, right? Some shows aren't made. Like, here's the thing: not all movies are made to be interpreted.
You think so?
Yeah, like, are you able to interpret anything from Star Wars?
Of course. Wait. Star Wars. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
There's the whole, like, what is it? The Force of, what is it?
The Force.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Force, it's like, spirituality and religion,
Okay. Yeah.
all that stuff.
Yeah. Because, like,
wisdom.
for me, like, when I see that stuff, I'm not trying to interpret anything. I'm more or less trying to see, like, I want to see, like, these characters go through certain things. Like, I'm more, like, character driven. Like, that's why I read or watch anything. It's for characters, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, our brains are wired differently.
Yeah. Because, like, when I, like, don't see, like, when I look that's why, like, in this podcast I do a very character focused driven like rundown, right? Because that's how I process stories, right? Is through characters and stuff like that. And, like, interpretation, like, I usually don't go in saying, like, oh, what's the meaning behind this thing. It's
the
interesting.
Numbers,
It's
like,
really interesting. It is interesting seeing from, like, maybe, like, from a filmology thing. I had a friend who was really into film, and so yeah, there is stuff that there are meanings of, like, why things are like that, but I don't read into that.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, but yeah, that's been Squid Game.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah.